guys, bear with us just a second.
We just come up. If you're joining us, hang tight. We're just getting all the streams going. Thanks for being here.
Forgot to click some buttons earlier, so I had to scramble. I think we're up and everything. Let me plug my laptop in so I might have power fluorescence.
See, this is just my vision of Scrabble, but
Do we want to check, make sure we're...
Yeah, can you guys look? It should be up on here.
YouTube says it's live. I don't see your wonderful faces.
Yeah, you want a second.
Facebook, I get seeing Gerard drink coffee. It's good.
Yeah. What's the sensor delay? In case we say fuck or something like that.
Whoa. Beep.
All right. Well, looks like we're up and running. Welcome, everybody. This is... This must be episode 126? 127?
I don't know.
127? The 034 Motorsport live chat here to answer all your questions about all things 034 and anything performance, automotive related, automotive in general. Talk about physics, talk about economics, talk about anything you want. But yeah, just put your questions into the browser of your choice that you're using. I'll just, like I've been warned, we're not doing a lot of update questions anymore because they just kind of create false expectations.
Yeah.
So we will do a little bit here and there as appropriate, especially if we're really certain about where things are at. So. We take a no BS approach to answering questions, and if you love us, if you hate us, let us know. We'd be happy to respond. All right, we got some questions coming in now. Someone's asking, elaborate on what other cooling modifications you'll be providing for the B9 3.0T, upgraded radiator, both left and right auxiliary coolers, oil cooler. So we are working on improving the cooling system capacity of the factory's engine coolant system. So yes, any and all of those modifications we'll be looking at. We're pretty early in the process, so
Yeah, it's going to take quite a bit of
it could be
more testing. I mean, you can throw bigger things at it, but until you actually evaluate it and test it on track and put it through its paces,
Yeah.
that's all part of the process we've got to do.
It could be a year before any of these products are released. Some comments about does the B8 radiator fit the B9? Again, we're not.
I don't know off the top of my
We
head.
don't know that. I'd be surprised if it did. It might be kind of close. Are you guys making injectors for the B9 S4, S5, SQ5? Holding off on the 4.0T until confirmation. Yes, y'all are the best. Thank you.
Thank you. We're not making injectors.
Yeah, nobody does. We're using factory RS5 injectors, which are the same as the 4.0T
I
injectors.
believe so, yeah.
Yeah.
I'd have to validate.
For sure, they're
Exact part
RS5
number.
injectors.
The part number we spec is from the RS5.
Yeah, and they're just OEM injectors that are bigger. Making your own direct injector is not easy or cheap, and it's not quite as simple as just making a bigger injector. The way these injectors inject fuel into the combustion chamber, and the amount of time you have, the atomization, it's very complex. So you can't. It's not quite as easy as a port injector, just throwing in a different port fuel injector. For the Supercharged 3.0T, do you think there will eventually be a mainstream market for supercharger intercooler bricks for better heat transfer? There's definitely a market for one, but there's really no way to improve on the factory intercooler brick that's in there. It's a very good, high quality, very efficient unit. I think there's been at least one company that I've seen that has released an intercooler brick
think I know I've seen 3-4 versions of aftermarket attempts.
Yeah, none have taken off. None have proven to be better.
Yeah, none have improved from the stock cooling ability that I've seen yet. It's just the problem is you can't really fix it because it's constrained physically. Like there's the stock cores are actually about as good as it gets.
No, they are absolutely.
From a heat dissipation standpoint. I mean, reliability, they do have issues. They do leak. They age, what I would consider fairly quickly for something like this. But as far as performance, I haven't seen anything out there yet that's been better.
So I had a conversation with one company who professionally manufactures and engineers, water to water heat exchangers, and they actually evaluated the factory supercharger bricks, and they said that they believed that there was something like a 3% improvement in efficiency that was possible. So essentially nothing. And that means if you had 100 extra degrees in the cooling system, you might be able to remove an extra 3 degrees, so, from 100 to 97. So no, there is a market, but like Nate said, I mean, look at the air to water intercooler market. Literally nobody on the market makes a better intercooler that's the same size as stock. The way you get more cooling is by doubling, tripling, quadrupling the size of the factory intercooler. And this is the same issue we have here. Yes, could someone make a B9 S4 intercooler that's the same dimensions as the factory, that's 3 to 5% more efficient? Yeah, of course. Who cares? It's the point.
We're not shopping for it's.
You're looking for like a 50 to 75% improvement, and that's just not going to be possible.
I mean, a 3% improvement you'll likely get to just by putting fresh OE cores in that aren't coated in oil, other detritus.
Right. Small animals. Release date for flow formed wheels. What are we working? I don't know if we have a release date.
They're still in testing.
Yeah, we're currently testing and evaluating production units. Once we finalize those, and if that all goes well, it should be pretty soon.
Just like everything else here, that we put them on cars, we beat the crap out of them, we bounce them off curbs on tracks, do all sorts of nastiness to them before we let you guys do the same.
B9.5 S4 build here. Will there ever be a turbo muffler delete?
I don't think that there is.
There isn't.
There's not a muffler.
There's
not a turbo muffler.
There's not a turbo.
It's You're.
I mean, is there something in one of the intercooler pipes?
I don't think there's a resonator.
I don't think so.
God, I'd have to.
I really don't think there
No, I
is.
pulled all my charge pipes today.
No, yeah. Let us know what you're looking at.
Yeah,
specifically.
we'd like to know.
It might be a terminology difference we're coming across here, but those don't have. So in the turbo muffler delete on like MQB cars, the small chassis cars, it's a bolt-in assembly that actually attaches to the outlet of the turbo, and it's just that it's a resonance chamber on the turbo outlet itself. These are it's a straight shot out of the turbo right to your charge pipes.
Would an RS5 comp need different tuning than a standard RS5? No, I don't believe so.
Generally, no. Those are, I mean, hardware-wise, they're the same. They just have the wick turned up a tiny bit from the factory.
It's just a different calibration.
Yeah, and we see this on. You can look at similar things when you go to like in Europe. You can get the A4 with the 3-liter supercharged motor. The calibration is just a detuned S4 version. But when we come through and we map those, the maps are all the same essentially, but we apply our calibration and strategies to it, and it becomes the tuned S4 box. So you get a bigger bump in power. In this case, you might get a marginally less of a bump because you started from a slightly higher point.
It's kind of similar how you can basically flash an R8 with a Lamborghini.
Sure. Yep. Yep. Yeah. If the hardware is the same,
the Audi R8 gets detuned compared to the Lamborghini, but all the parts are the same. Someone's asking about flex fuel for the B9. Definitely something we're working on. Just a matter of priorities. Then there's people asking about being able to flash 2022s and 2023s.
Yeah, so one comment here, it says, what is your plan for 2022 Audi models? They are all locked. Well, newsflash, they've been locked since 1998, 99.
Every
Like,
TCU
literally
is locked.
everything is locked. It's a matter of
The manual transmission TCUs weren't locked.
they were not. You're correct. Until they're singles. But no, literally everything's locked. It's just a matter of providing workarounds and something we feel is ready to be released to the wild. But we are working on it. It's one of those things. It'll be done as soon as we're done with it. But we are working on it, and it's high on our priority list.
Yes. Same with 2023.
It's all the same.
2024 will be locked. 2025 will be locked.
Yep.
I could keep going.
Yep. Literally, it's just figuring out. There's no unlock to these. We have to find the way around the lock. You have to, see what window they left open and sneak in through it.
Yeah. And I get the question is saying other ECUs aren't locked anymore. They still are. But we're trying to make the point that they're all locked. They have been.
Yeah.
I remember in, the mid 90s. I mean, they were locked before that. I mean, I don't think
It depends on what you count as locked. Because
I started in the industry when we started tuning basically the Mark II, GTI came with Digifont, and that was an EFI based system, and it was locked. Eventually, I'm sure the lock was a little twist tie wrapped the door
essentially
compared to today's NSA level security. But even back then, and then I remember when the B5 came, everybody wanted to tune it. They said it was the untunable ECU was locked. In every kind of generation, B9 was supposed to be locked. It didn't get cracked for 3 years. So
and
hang in there. It's this stuff all happens, and we can still tune your ECU. But these things take time, and they have to.
And
They're supposed to happen.
they're not supposed to. Yeah, there's different levels of what you can call locked. Those early ECUs would basically just have their protection mechanisms within the ECU that says, hey, if anything's not what I expect it to be, don't do anything. Something's wrong. And that's generally a checksum routine or some sort of data validation routine. And that'll result in the ECU not working if you change anything unless you know how to basically tell it that data is valid and keep moving along. So those are basic checksums and validations, and that's been in place, since the conception of these ECUs. Some are much trickier than others. Some are purposefully obfuscated, so you can't easily see and reverse engineer it, and you've got to really dig in. And then there's new stuff these days that is that, and then take it to a whole another level where it's actively trying to keep you out of the ECU in many other ways as well.
Yeah. Will you be making chili for WinterFest? Yes, I will. I'm looking forward to it. So just to let you know about my chili, I basically make the day before WinterFest. I make 20-gallon pot of pot roast. So I have 2 pots. The one I serve chili in, I think, is 30 gallons.
It's no joke. That thing
It's
is
this big around. It weighs like almost 200 pounds. It's full. So I specifically got a thick-walled pot with nicely riveted handles because I could just imagine 30 gallons of scalding hot chili, spilling onto the ground, and, taking people out as it floods out of the building. But I make a pot roast, which means I take pot roast beef, which is a really tough, fatty cut. It's not cheap. It's really good quality. It's like a chuck roast type cut. And then I braise that for about 6 hours, which means I cook it over kind of medium-low heat in a braising liquid. And so this causes all the fat to render out, all the connective tissue, all the things that make the meat tough. All that stuff melts out. Oh, Garrett, yeah, good. Hey, Garrett, how's it going? And then what we're left with at the end of that cooking process is tender, delicious pull apart meat with a delicious braising liquid, which is essentially kind of a beef broth. And so then I process all the beef down. Remove any extra fat or anything because I don't want you to get like a bite of like fat or gristle. There's no gristle. It's just extra fat stuff. And then I set that aside. I chop that up into bite-sized pieces. I set that aside. And then I reserve the liquid, which is the base for the chili. So that's what gives the chili an incredible flavor. And then from there, it's pretty standard chili treatment. I do put beans in it because I'm trying to feed like 400 people. So yeah, I'm looking forward to it. Hope you come out.
It's
The feedback's always great. People enjoy it.
There's lots of other fixings for it too. So
Yeah, and I mean, I know a lot of events, the people serve hot dogs or they'll have some food truck come out or something, which is fine. I want everyone to feel a little bit more special than that. And so I literally put, 2 full days of cooking in. It's not super expensive. It's probably, $600 to feed these people, but it's a good 15, 20 hours of my time to do it. But that's just a way that I really like to show my appreciation and love for people. So if I ever have cooked for you, it's I don't cook for people I hate. I would have a hard
Revenge
time
cooking.
doing it. Yeah. But for me, it's a way to show my love and appreciation. It means a lot to me to cook for people. So, and unfortunately, I'm good at it, so people enjoy it. So it's a great thing. And I think we're shooting for one like end of January, early February time frame. So that's correct. If you're making any plans around then, don't.
just
Keep your schedule.
Keep your calendar for.
Actually, we need to talk about it. Because I might have to go on a trip like second week of February.
Bro, keep your schedule.
No, this trip's worth it. Have we already did that one. Oh wait, have you considered making an air-to-air intercooler for the B9.5 RS5, and would there be a benefit other than simplicity and less failure points? Well, it's hard to say. The factory B9 air-to-water intercooler works quite well, and then once you upgrade it, we currently run a Wagner system. It's very well cooled.
It's pretty good. Yeah, I mean,
it's decent.
Yeah,
You'd have to. I can't. I don't know if I have the data in front of me. I think it may rival the cooling capacity of the air to.
yeah. We haven't back to back that yet. We've talked about it. That's certainly something we have talked about in engineering, but I don't have that data. With a nice clean, apples to apples comparison between the two.
Yeah, the challenge you run into, which the RS5 has the same problem, right? Because it has a heat exchanger in front of the radiator. But when you cover the radiator with a huge intercooler, which on the B9 S4 at this point you have a 3-inch thick intercooler covering the entire, radiator surface, the air coming out of the intercooler isn't that hot. It's cooler than the coolant temps, so it does still allow cooling. But the more you turn up the boost, the more heat you're dissipating, it does begin taking away from capacity in the cooling system. So, you start to have to, make a lot of compromises, and again, run into the no free lunch issues. So what would be really nice is, like in the old days, we would put like a big bumper on the front of the car, and then just put a big air-to-air unit in the bottom of the bumper, and then or just fill the front bumper with an intercooler, and then there would still be the top of the radiator. Air would come in through like the radiator grill area, and then you could still get cool ambient air going around the air-to-air units. So I think we'll figure it out. But no, I don't think it's a slam dunk going to air on the RS5. That's actually a really nice system. So, for B9 RS5, would a meth kit be a good option for cooling benefits? I mean, we don't really have plans to do any meth tuning for that. And no, it's not gonna. Meth is good for increasing octane. I mean, that's the one thing for sure. If you run water meth, it will give you the benefit of a higher octane. So
It's just
But yeah, the problem is I've never seen a meth kit implemented that has been a uniform application of methanol throughout the entire operating range of the motor. So you've got these like big humps or dips as to what gets injected. It's kind of a very crude, if not fixed. It's a very simplified injection model that's not like tied to RPM or tied to everything that it's going to need to be tied to exactly add the same amount of fuel across the entire power band and part load, or 3/4 throttle, whatever it is. That those systems just don't exist because the amount of integration you need is far beyond what an off-the-shelf kit would typically be targeted at. So beside all that, there's also just the reliability and the it's another fuel media you've got to make sure you're on top of. So you got to have either some sort of level monitoring, flow monitoring, some fault detection around that whole system to make sure it's something you can trust and rely on.
we talk a lot about water meth on here. For us, water meth doesn't really exist. It's not like we don't. It's not a tool that we would ever look to solve any kind of tuning or calibration problem. Honestly, I get why water meth. I'm just gonna say this. I get why they're popular. Because Joe Schmuckatelli can go become a snow performance dealer. Maybe he can put together an install kit that fits GTIs or B9s or whatever. And a week later, Joe Schmuckatelli can be selling water meth kits to everyone, making these claims that it cools your engine, adds octane, it cools your intake charge, it replaces an intercooler. It doesn't. It doesn't do it. In practice, it doesn't do those things. But anyone can slap a water meth kit in any car, even the brand new 2023 model. You can throw a water meth kit on it. You don't need to program it differently. You don't have to do anything, and it probably won't do anything. It might actually decrease your power, but the car will run okay.
That's a point a lot of people don't make. Almost every meth kit I've had on a dyno here and done A to B testing on the same day, same minutes apart. It's been zero change or a drop in power because basically it's either an overrichen mixture or it's lying to the knock sensor or the intake temperature sensor enough that it's now getting into a bunch of knock because it's gone too far and you don't have enough.
I remember, and I've played with water meth kits a lot subsequently, but the first time I ever tuned a car with a water meth kit on the dyno, we had a whole bunch of different nozzle sizes, and I didn't know what nozzle sizes were, but we started with the biggest one, and I don't even think the engine would finish the pull. Like it was literally like misfired. So we kept going smaller and smaller, and finally we get to a nozzle that makes the most power, and I'm like, okay, this is the right nozzle. This is the peak power. So then, just for shits and giggles, we turned it off. Engine made even more power than the smallest nozzle, and we basically determined that the engine made the most power with a nozzle of 0.0 millimeters. The smallest nozzle was the best. So I don't know what your all experiences are. I think there's a lot of snake oil around water meth. Water meth does have real applications. It was definitely used in World War I to cool, supercharged fighter planes, and there is a history of using water meth in racing. Water does absorb a lot, does convert heat. It does use energy to convert itself from liquid to steam. So there's some science behind it, but in practice, I think the claims are.
And there are production cars that have run it. There was an M2 Comp or something.
There is, yeah, something pretty new.
One of the BMWs.
Yes, and Porsches now have them.
Right. So, but that's where I'm getting at is that's a completely integrated solution that is controlled by the ECU and is mapped and modeled and part of the calibration process. So if you start something, and have it fully engineered and built in, yes, there's certainly a point where water meth can help you, either thermally or whatever it is they're which problem they're trying to solve.
Yeah.
But the add-on kits, that's difficult, especially in our world where we have full control over the calibration side. We don't necessarily need or benefit much from that.
Yeah. So anyways, anyone who's watching this, I would say don't mess with it. It's really not getting you anything. So plenty of people do. 2018 RS5 looking to add air intake, exhaust, and tune. Will your tune work with other suppliers, AW intake and exhaust? Yes, our tuning will work. You know, for us, it goes without saying. If you want to get the best result, use our intakes with our tunes and use this integrated, holistically engineered product. I would seriously question spending money on an exhaust for an RS5. We're making 700 plus horsepower on a stock exhaust running 9.9 second quarter miles in a street trim vehicle. The factory exhaust is not restrictive. We have some ResX products coming that will help make the car louder for very cheap. So if you're looking for an increased or improved exhaust tone, we and other companies have some solutions. But $2,000 or $3,000 exhaust these days, I'm just glad I'm not in the exhaust business. We've chosen not to get into that business because the factory exhaust systems are very good, and then it just comes to kind of tweaking the sound of it, and you can do that without changing the whole exhaust. Would you suggest getting an S7 over dumping money into my B8 S4 for a proper dual pulley setup? What S7?
A C7 S7.
Like 4 liter.
Yeah.
Oh, okay, 4.0 T. Yeah, it depends what you're looking to accomplish. The 4.0 Ts are obviously very potent.
I think they're you're describing two completely different
Very different
cars.
car, yeah.
That's
The S7's bigger than an S4.
Yeah,
Two-door.
You're an 8-speed automatic versus your DSG, your supercharged versus turbocharged. Obviously, displacement differences. So
Those got DL S7s in the US. Those were 7-speed issues.
oh,
That's
that might
six
still be
ones.
Yeah. You're right. I'm sorry.
The
That one's
S6
still.
So that is
I'm
still a
sorry.
DSG, but regardless. Yeah, I mean, you can have a blast with both cars, and both cars can be very fast. I think it's just up to you at this point. I have a 2022 S5 that the TCU is not supported when asked 3 months ago. When I launch the application for TCU upgrade, it has an option to upgrade. Does this mean my car is now supported?
No, nothing has changed if it was an unsupported one. I don't know specifically what you're seeing because I don't think there's any upgrade for that. So shoot an email to Tuning App and ping me on it, and that should get it to me, and I'll take a look and see exactly what you were looking at.
Are there any advantages to flashing an updated version ECU TCU base file, or is behavior pretty much identical once flashed? This is something I haven't understood. Is Audi TSB style ECU updates and how that is implemented when tuning an older base file that hadn't been updated?
That depends on the application. So as things age, we will typically kind of move all of the older code bases up to the latest box codes. So like all the B8 stuff now, there were TSBs that forced everybody to update. So that kind of did it for us. It was an emissions related TSB. So all the vehicles, in order to get registered, had to get updated to this one box code. And but that's US only. That doesn't necessarily apply to everybody else in the world. So we do then offer that update, and we'll perform that update for all the other ECUs around the world. That may not be. So that that's something we do, but on the current new vehicles that are generally they're under warranty, or they're much more active, going back to the dealer and whatnot. We typically will not update software versions unless there's a reason to.
Yeah. So
it's
bottom line, we do it if it's needed. If not, it's not going to change the performance.
It would make our lives a lot easier if we just picked one version and updated everything to that. But we try and keep it as as accurate to what you should be on the vehicle as can be.
But as far as the question saying, is behavior different? No.
Very rarely.
Very rarely would have a substantive difference in how the engine performs.
There's usually it's little bug fix stuff. It's stuff that's almost never related to like an actual perceivable driving difference. It's some sort of test loop or something that needs some tweaking. Is either false flagging an error condition when there might not be, or they ended up as cars age, they find out, well, it's tripping all these faults now, but it's not actually a problem, so we need to adjust some things to move that out of the way, which is what all the B8.5 updates were. They didn't actually fix anything. They just said, we don't care.
Will the B9 RS5 720 TTE Stage 3 E85 tune work with any intercooler Could you use an air-to-air, or will you have to use a Wagner setup you have?
I mean, as long as it's capable of keeping up with the charge temps.
Yeah, assuming it's actually intercooling,
Yeah.
then it doesn't matter. The air temps just need to be within a certain range. There needs to be a certain level of cooling performance from whatever intercooler is installed. If you put a cheap eBay, air-to-air on there, and it actually cools worse than the Wagner, then yeah, you're going to have a bad time. I think you could even run with the stock intercooler too.
Yeah, it's going to derate pretty quickly. They're pretty limited.
But if you just you want to squirt, pull here or there on the streets before you want to deal with the intercooler, you can run it. We strongly recommend running the upgraded intercooler for optimum, sustained peak performance. You're not going to want to go on track with the stock intercooler.
No.
It will, like Nate said, it will derate, and the ECU will start pulling power to bring the heat load down. We got some lazy dog woof woofs. Welcome. Darn jobs, yeah.
No jobs will get in the way.
Mm-hmm. Our S3 and RS3 use the same suspension components. I've noticed more coilover options for the S3, but some don't fit RS3. Oh, okay. Yeah, so generally with Audis, what we see is, Audi takes one chassis, let's say the A3, and then, they upgrade it from there. So the A3 turns into the S3, turns into the RS3, and it's just the matter of bolting different parts on to the car to change and augment or improve, transform the vehicle's performance. Now the RS3 has, like magnetic ride or some version of that, and there could be compatibility issues with the S3. So there's no way for us to say.
Yeah, I don't know why
some things would fit and others.
There's also different weights front to rear between the two, so getting proper ride height handling characteristics is going to change.
Yeah,
them.
But they do have different shocks and struts and springs.
Yep.
And they all bolt to the same chassis. There's no real differences there, which is a function of the Volkswagen Audi Group's world platform concept, like MQB and MQB Evo and PQ.
I'm trying to think if there's anything. If you took the drivetrain out and the fenders off and looked at the cars from underneath, I don't think you could tell which was which.
Mm-hmm. Hi guys, I just purchased a 03493 octane tune for my 2018 Audi S5. I did the install and everything seemed to go as planned. The car runs great, but now after less than 500 miles on the clock, I have a check engine light that has come on. Car is less than 35,000 miles, never had an issue. Any suggestions other than take you to a dealer?
Yeah,
yes.
We have lots of suggestions.
Email us.
We can set you up with some tools to do some basic fault code stuff. But I will also recommend too, with any modern vehicle these days, is just try and find a couple of tools that's going to make your life a lot easier.
Yeah.
Just simply, there's so much diagnostic capability built into these cars, and every car that's being built now. It makes you're going to have a lot of money well spent if you just pick up one of the well-supported diagnostic tools. So it'd be that like VCDS or OBD11 for these platforms. And cruise the forums. There's tons of YouTube videos and forums and help out there to kind of see, just so you can take a little bit of that into your own hands and see like, hey, what am I dealing with here? It could be, this could be anything. These cars will throw check engine lights for, a myriad of things.
Yeah.
It could be a loose gas cap or a failing gas cap. Like you just don't know. There's literally thousands of things it could be that may or may not be related.
In diagnostic terms, that's called a red herring. So you do one thing and all of a sudden another thing happens, and then you just correlate the two events. But you need to understand more about what's actually going on by reading the code and seeing what's going on. So don't assume that anything's wrong with your car. Don't assume that anything's wrong with the tune. Definitely don't take it to the dealer.
Not for something like that. I would do a little bit more research, arm yourself with some more information too. And it helps too when you have that information, you take it to the dealer, be like, hey, I have these fault codes. This is what I'm dealing with. What's my next step? Yeah. If it's something that is outside of your scope.
And we're always here to help. So tuning at 034, at 034motorsport.com. we're always here to advise you on what to do.
And I mean,
you're not on your own.
Yeah, if you still have to go to the, I mean, I've had warranty work done on, some of my cars,
Sure.
and I will do a full fault code list, like, hey, here's exactly what happened, when it happened, what happened, how the vehicle was driving, and I provide that to the dealer when I, start my discussions with them, and yeah, everybody starts off with more information.
Is it safe to run stage 1 ECU and TCU with stock cats, B8 S4?
Absolutely, we have a full carb exempt, emissions compliant calibration that requires that you keep the stock cats in there.
In fact, you have to run stock cats on stage 1 this year.
I run stock cats in my car, and
Maybe what you're referring to is the stock factory Audi cats are known to be more failure prone. They're still not like going to go out every 5,000 miles, but instead of lasting 150,000 miles, they may only last 7. But
it's very dependent on driving, like what kind of use cases. If you're doing like track days all the time with them, or doing really high sustained EGTs seems to be kind of what kills these
or you
things.
run a shitty tune,
Terrible tune, or there's a myriad of things that can shorten the life of it. And if you're still on like unknown stock catalysts, then I mean they're just kind of they have a lifespan. It's very finite.
Aside from cracking the newer ECUs, what was the most difficult part of tuning the B9 3.0T? What were your first thoughts after the first clean dyno test?
Most difficult part of tuning.
I mean, every engine, every tune, every calibration has various tricks and hurdles. Some of them we won't discuss openly because it would advise our competitors.
Yeah.
But these newer ECUs have thousands of maps.
Hundreds of thousands.
Well, and they're getting more and more.
But between the variables we're dealing with and the mapping, the actual calibrations, and then you've got your runtime variables and things. Yeah, we're in the hundreds of thousands now.
So that just presents an immense amount of complexity.
Yeah, it's the complexity is the biggest thing on anything, and it's just you kind of have to learn the new language of any new generation that comes along. And then these ECUs are very, it's up to the same guys as us basically at the factory determining how they want to calibrate it, what kind of strategies they want to put in place, and what safety mechanisms they chose, how they chose it. And it varies quite a bit. I mean, you'll have a 3-liter from a B9, and then you have one from a B9.5, which was calibrated by maybe a different team or a different lead, and they're going to have different strategies. And you've got to learn how that team went about it, and make sure you've got all of that in your accounted for when you're looking to modify these. So it's kind of just like learning a new language, basically. You've got a base language you're starting with from all of your previous history, and then you've got all this new information you've got to compile and integrate into your tuning efforts.
I mean, you guys are seeing some incredible results. 700-800 horsepower from these motors with bolt-ons. A lot of that is because of the immense, never seen before capabilities of the factory ECUs. With each generation, there's paradigm leaps forward in not only the complexity of the motor. You have variable cam timing, you have variable valve lift, you have FSI injection, incredibly advanced mapping and control of these motors to a degree that's never been seen before. So that with that immense capability comes immense complexity. And so the more these ECUs can do, the greater the result, but the more depth and difficulty there is in figuring any of that out and making these changes. So this is why right now in our market, there's essentially 4 or 5 companies in the world, doing this kind of tuning, and arguably there's 1 or 2 doing it at the level we're doing it at.
There's a lot of reuse in the industry that people don't necessarily see.
Sure.
Like they go to like a tuning house and just get a flash put on, and it's probably just some rehashed version.
Yeah, in a year from now, everything that we've been doing will be more common out there. But the companies like us that are pushing the limits and releasing these new tunes, it is challenging and difficult. The next generation, whatever, B10, which is right around the corner, will be an additional, leap forward. So
Yep.
we we become better for it, but it's always taking huge, leaps forward.
Yes.
That's pretty rare when we get thrown a freebie.
Yeah. And it's not necessarily, and it never really ends either for the life of the platform. I mean,
Right, like 2022, 2023.
B9's evolving. It's got multiple, not just multiple different calibration strategies. In the middle of their production, they switched processors entirely on all the 3-liter cars. So you've got a whole nother generation of processor now that maybe you developed a bunch of tools on the old one. You've now got to rebuild all those tools for a completely different, tool chain that's needed to compile for that processor.
Yeah.
So,
All right.
fun stuff.
Great question. Thank you. With the Stage 3 market growing but still so new for the B9 S4, has anyone pushed the limits, tested the rigidity of the stock internals of the EA839? Any idea how far they can be pushed? Yeah, I mean, we're basically there. With the 810 tuning, the rods are the next, weak link as far as the engine bottom end. I think that's it though for a while.
Yeah, I mean,
we got to keep pushing.
destructive testing's tough. You can get to that point and then hope that you see the exact fault, but it can show up in all kinds of different ways. You can get, I mean, we've seen this on Daza where you overpower the rod a little bit, and you get a little basically a little deformation in the rod. Mm-hmm. That results then in things like the wrist pin cracking on the side of the piston. Which then scores the bore, which then, and it's, you really have to kind of like hope you get a clean picture when something fails in some certain way to know that you're fighting the right limits.
Right now, there's a Daza driving around with a 1 degree bend in the rod, which is now putting a 1 degree, load on the piston skirts within the bore, and that's going to let go soon, but everything that we release, once we release it, is good and within the safe limits.
Yeah, we do everything we can to.
But I think to go beyond 810 power levels will require. I think we're towards the end of what you can do with bolt-ons at this power level.
Maybe some bolt-ins.
Mm-hmm. Some getting under the skirt, piston skirt that is. I've got 55,000 miles on my RS5 with perfect maintenance records. Should I worry about pushing Stage 3 components?
What do we have on ours now?
No worries, no.
No, we're not quite there, but I mean, it's
had
lots of miles that have been.
Our RS5 setup is solid. We've drag raced it, we've tracked it, we've put miles on it.
Yeah, it's been.
Yeah.
Elevation elevation testing. We try and check all this stuff off. With every calibration effort.
You're giving it high kicks, everything you can. Pretty much. Any worries for the durability of the block for the B9 RS5 with the power increases you're accomplishing? No, not with the block itself.
Not yet. I mean, this is nothing. We've never come across it.
But the rods, this is not just these engine. Every engine, kind of the first limit is the rod. It's inherently a weak component, or a component that sees a lot of stress in a way that would bend it or break it. Pistons, they have to go up and down, and they have to kind of withstand a certain amount of heat and combustion pressure and force. All that, the torque that hits your tires eventually is pushed through the top of the piston, through the piston skirt to the wrist pin into the connecting rod. But the connecting rod's doing this as it's going up and down. And so there's a lot of force and angular force on it. So it's a tough part. And then just think about it when you're at 6,000-7,000 RPM and the piston hits top dead center, the rod is what pulls it back down. And so I calculated it once. I mean, it's something like tons.
The forces are insane.
The connecting rod it has to withstand it's like lifting several of your cars off the ground instantaneously for a split microsecond.
If you've ever taken apart a motor, you just step back and be like, okay, that piston inside there then moves up and down 7,000 times a minute. Break that down to what that is, revolutions per second, or how many cycles per second, and then try and get your head around moving that component that quickly. The physics are.
I remember I built a spreadsheet at one point and calculated because ADTQ used to rough to like almost it's like 9,800 RPM.
Yeah.
And I mean, that was like lifting the building off the ground with one connecting rod. It's insane. And then you talk about F1 motors and stuff like that. It's mind-boggling.
The concept that it has to get to that speed and then completely stop and then turn
Yeah.
back around.
Yeah,
is
it's
insane.
just
And
a yo-yo.
pistons aren't
back and-
light. Even really light pistons are still. You wouldn't want to get hit in the head.
And then you add into the fact that then you have valves opening, fuel injecting, spark happening, and a combustion event. You know, it's how these things work at all.
It should.
Just an engineering marvel.
It doesn't make sense how fire can happen that quick. Like I still never understood it. But on eBay, there's actually some good videos of people who like cut motors open and then.
On YouTube,
What did I say?
eBay.
Oh.
There might be on eBay too.
On YouTube, where you can actually see like how fast it is, and I mean each combustion event is happening.
I've seen a couple of
You
those where
can
like,
see it.
like flat top
Yeah, exactly.
cylinder heads. So you just-
There's one with a BMW motor, 12,000.
Oh, damn.
And then the initially you see the lifter going up and down, the valve sprinting, and then it kind of like disappears, and then it reappears, and there's like harmonics, and you just see like it's just crazy, and then it disappears again.
Yeah, what always trips me out on those too is if you watch the actual valve head, they're just constantly moving in some
They
way
do.
just because of the action of the spring and
They do.
the tappet moving it. But you think the valve's in there, you can't spin it with your hand, so it's not going to move. But they're just kind of
Well, and actually the lifters are slightly off center, so as the cam hits the lifter, it's spinning and rotating.
the lifter.
Yeah, and then it causes the whole valve to prevents it from wearing. Helps it cool. How many pounds of boost did the turbos produce in the B9 RS5 world record pass?
Exactly as much as needed.
Yeah.
We don't really work in the world of like boost.
That's not how these ECUs work.
Yeah, it'll make more or less depending on conditions and temperatures.
But do you have like a rough idea? It's got to be like the.
It was I want to say 3,200-ish millibar plus or minus 100 millibar, somewhere around there. If I had to guess, but I don't know honestly how much of that, and it depends on where you are in the rev range. It's not flat. It's not a tabletop boost curve. It's going to move around depending on torque requirements and turbo ability.
Yeah, but yeah, it's
If I had to guess, I think that's probably where
probably
about
like
where
30 to 32 pounds of boost, give or take. But more boost isn't always best. either.
we run
So
as little as we
we
can
talk about
to get whatever we're trying to accomplish. Now.
Will 034 allow customers to data log, and will there ever be an option to tweak tunes based on customer conditions?
Absolutely. I mean, the data logging we use as a tool, as a support tool for you. So generally, it's if you have a question or a concern, the data log is for us to really help zero in on what might be a problem.
Yeah, but we are not in the business of tweaking individual tunes.
So we want to get a file built that is going to work as intended. Because if we're tweaking a tune, what are we tweaking it for? Is there some sort of compromise on your vehicle? Is there what's the reason we're doing this, and then will it change down the road once that whatever tweak was made for is corrected?
I know one of our competitors supposedly tweaks every stage 3 tune they do.
That is not
That's not what we do.
that is not
Our
our-
tune does not need to be tweaked per car. So I don't know why you are asking this question. If you think that your tune will need to be tweaked, then the answer would be it doesn't, it shouldn't.
Yeah.
If there's a change that we need to make to this tune or calibration, then we would make it to all the tunes and calibrations. The ECUs, assuming you're running the spec hardware that we require, you're running the right injector, the right map sensor, the right turbo, and certainly you've done the recommended mods, but they're not required. Then the factory ECU is more than capable of dealing with any variable outside of that, unless there's just something wrong with your motor, and we're not gonna accommodate something that's functionally incorrect.
Yeah, and that's what I was trying to get at. Is if there's a fault of some kind, even if it's a temporary thing, there's a huge leaf across your air filter or something, and you're like, oh, well, I need to bump up the my pre-control for my boost a little bit here to compensate for that. That leaf goes away. There's really ridiculous things we see, but it's really hard to just be like, okay, well, I'm going to make this file for this car because it needs it. Why does it need it? Why does it need to be adjusted?
Just shoot us an email if you'd like. And he said he's on the beta team too.
Okay.
Beta 8 to
stuff.
great to hear. He says he's happy with it. But yeah, just talk to us about whatever you have in mind. But
Yeah.
our responses are kind of for everyone else listening. No, our tunes don't need to be tweaked or.
I mean, going back a generation, all of our B8 record tune is on literally the same file that everyone has access to. We don't do calibrations per vehicle for any of these.
Yeah, so.
Holy cow.
Would you agree or disagree that Audi OEM engineering teams are fans of aftermarket tuning and support? I would agree that the people that work at Audi are fans of like what companies like us do. We have met Audi engineers, we've met Audi OEM calibrators, Audi race team people. We've worked with them in some cases, and they are fans of what we do.
They're enthusiasts. They love.
Yeah.
I mean, they're the same as us in a lot of ways.
Audi,
Corporate,
not a fan.
Very different.
Yeah. It's the people are fans, but Audi as a company does not support aftermarket.
Yeah,
They do
they're
not.
much more, I don't know what you say, like liability or legally driven.
They're not interested. They're interested in selling cars to people. They're not interested in, and they're interested in making good performing cars, fast cars, nice, great cars. But they look to themselves to do that, and I think like a lot of companies, they seek control over the outcomes, over the customer experience, and so they have zero control over what we do, and as a result, one, they can't manage the expectations of what customers experience, and then two, many times aftermarket companies are hurting customer experiences. Like in the past, people would put parts on a car, it would have a problem, they'd go to the dealership expecting to warranty it. Audi would find out that it was a result of a poorly implemented or designed aftermarket product. So anyways, we do our best to do what we do despite zero support from. But I think we do a lot of benefit for Audi. We generate a lot of enthusiasm.
Right. That's always the tough thing to get your head around is like we help, or we are a huge part of the enthusiasm that gets people into these cars.
I must have sold tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands of Audis in my career, me personally, and then there's what 034 Motorsport is doing. So, let's see what else. This was a good question. Someone basically asked, is a bigger clutch required for stage 1 on Mk7 GTI? In my experience, it shouldn't be. If you have a factory clutch that's worn out, or if you're trying to like launch it or drag race it or drive it hard. But I do remember when these cars first started getting tuned, I think, did APR, like at one point they were requiring a clutch upgrade?
The manuals are right at the limit.
It does.
And it depends on how you drive it almost more than anything. How your tendencies around your shift and your clutch actuation. We're assuming the same is going to be the same story for the Mark 8.
Yeah.
Which we will have.
Let's keep going.
Stuff for.
I recently installed a 034 high pressure fuel pump on my B9 S5 and then flashed the stage 2 plus ECU and TCU, but for some reason the car in sport mode won't shift past 5,500 RPM. But I forced it to shift at 6K in manual mode. It fits the driveline limp mode.
You're going to have to contact tuning out.
Tuning out. We'll talk to you about
sounds that. Like you might have a mismatch in what was flashed ECU versus TCU, but we would have to look at shoot an email to tuning out with basically this exact thing, and make sure you include your VIN so we can look up your flash records, and we'll dig in from there.
The 034 still do Unitronic tunes. We never. It's been years since we have, but our service departments was doing them. If you were local and you came in, I think we pretty much stopped doing that a year or two ago. But I think if you ask for it, you can.
I think we still can.
We have an account and stuff, but we pretty much have anything that Unitronic does. But in other cases where we don't have coverage, we will offer Unitronic. So just talk to our service department if you're interested in that. We don't have anything against Unitronic. I mean, they're a competitor, but they're polite, helpful, considerate competitor.
Professional.
Yeah, professional. Tune my 22 S4. I mean, we do have a
Yeah.
ECU tune for
We will have more information, or hopefully some.
Early 22 for example.
Yeah, or
Yeah.
depending on the exact build.
That's fine. Would you recommend using a turbo blanket to manage heat in the engine for the new hybrid turbos? Not unless you wanted to, shield the engine compartment from extra heat. And the factory covers and shields are plenty on the B9. I would say in general, turbo blankets are they're kind of a waste of money.
Yeah, and be careful. The blankets that I've seen for these cars, they actually interfere with the actuation of the wastegate, and I've seen a number of faults issues related around that, where it's kind of smashed under the gate arm, and then it's trying to swipe across this like comforter blanket.
There's one company in particular that's built a multi-million-dollar business around selling turbo blankets for anything and everything. It's a lot silly.
We do not run any blankets on anything that we calibrate here.
I'd say buy a nice blanket for your girlfriend. They love it. Or wife. Do husbands like blankets?
It's a cool.
Yeah. It's possible. Yeah. Any update on the ETA for the? It's an ETA. Well, will void fillers like the transmount void warranty? And the subframe mounts difference. We haven't seen any issues over the years with inserts causing warranty being voided. You could literally get your warranty voided for anything.
I mean,
But the dealership does have the responsibility to prove that the modification caused the failure. And our inserts do not cause factory components to fail. There's no evidence.
I do know when we released our B8 inserts, one of the big uptakes was actually from dealerships to address customer concerns
Dealerships are
of
fine,
clunking into first gear. So a bunch of dealerships started stocking the inserts and using them to assist customer.
The biggest issue with warranties and tuning, or warranties is around tuning, ECU tuning, things like that. But if you put any aftermarket part on your car, it could void your warranty. Aftermarket wheels could void your warranty. So you can fight back though and make the dealership prove that it caused. Might be permanently converting my B8.5 S4 to off-road track only and on a trailer. Any plans on providing support on rods and pistons? Much love. Yes, we do have connecting rod support for that already, if you'd like. We have rods from powder that we've developed. So, sure, we could sell a set. We just need to get them in the website and stuff like that. But yeah, I don't think pistons we're gonna do. In general, I believe there's more issues with aftermarket pistons if they're not needed. If you're running a really high stress application, like a 1200 horsepower or something, then yes, you need a stronger piston. But with that extra strength, usually it comes a lot of compromises, like extra noise, more oil consumption, issues with ring sealing, things like that. But look more for internal support. We did release head gaskets already, and then we have internal head studs and mate studs, things like that coming as well. Anything else jumping out that I should get to before we end?
Tell this guy to email.
Fans on long after car is shut off and E21. Okay. Yeah, just shoot us an email to tuning@034motorsports.com so we can evaluate any issues. Would you say you need to upgrade motor mounts if you are running a big turbo on a Mark 5 GTI? I would say yes.
Yeah, if you're in a big turbo territory,
You've doubled the power of the car.
I mean, the pendulum mounts are very important, and then engine fans certainly is.
I would consider our motorsport mounts for that application are very good, very strong. You'll never have another motor mount issue.
And they're not solid mounts. Everybody likes calling those solid or billet mounts. They are rubber isolated.
They are made from billet.
They also there's billet encasing them, but there is still a rubber isolation to them.
Yeah. You had any problems with B9.5 thermostats? I haven't really heard much about that.
The actual thermostat itself on the 9.
Definitely B8s have had issues.
Early B9s.
Early B9s did too, yeah. But I don't think 9.5 have heard.
Did ours though? Ours were.
Ours did not, but many folks did experience.
Yeah, that was definitely a thing, and that was one of the things we were dealing with this cooling performance stuff because there were bad thermostats on some of the early cars, so we were trying to troubleshoot chicken rig.
I have a 22 S5 on your Stage 2 Plus. I love you guys. Will you? Thank you. I love you too. Will you? And I will be your test dummy if you need it. Well, you don't have to be a dummy, but you can certainly help with testing if we need it. Trying to run 9s next year on the TTE A10. Awesome. We'd love to hear about that. We'd love to help. Can I fit 285s on my car? Maybe a 19-inch wheel for drag pack.
I mean, you can
Possibly.
yeah,
That's kind of the upper limit on what you can do.
and drag racing too, going that wide,
You actually don't need it.
May not be anything you even need to do.
So with drag racing, the key is we're out of time, but the key is getting the most traction you can with the least weight. So if you're adding more traction than you need, and you're adding pounds of weight, which a big tire is heavy.
Yeah.
So if you can get away with like a 255 or even a 235 on a lighter wheel, you're gonna want a certain amount of wheel spin too coming off the line, like a little bit. So you don't need to eliminate all.
No, we did our 9.9 on what 255s, I think. 245 maybe 255. They
245.
They
Two Bouges.
yeah. Well, yeah. DR2. No, you're going to need a drag radial. Or,
Yeah.
you know, very likely will.
But you don't need a
drag
285 drag radial, and then actually having some sidewalls is a good thing.
radial. Yeah, and you start paying the price on the top end with bigger and bigger tires. They eat horsepower. So yeah. There's trade-offs each way.
Mm-hmm. All right, we're out of time. Thanks, guys. I don't know about next. I think next week we're closed.
Yes.
On Monday.
Yes, we are.
Day after Christmas, so we might not see you for 2 weeks.
And then it's New Year's. So actually, I don't know.
Yeah, it might be.
We'll figure it out.
Have a great holidays, though.
Yeah. Great.
Thanks for a great year. Appreciate it. Merry Christmas. Happy New Year. Happy Hanukkah. Holidays. All of it.
Happy festivities.
Cheers.